There is no evidence behind that. You just asked me where I got mine. Where do you get the evidence that Lawrence Krauss does not? I've talked to Lawrence Krauss before. He does not believe that. He does not say that a cell can just pop up out of nowhere and then just evolve and self-replicate.
I also never say that cell pops out of nowhere.
Okay, so where does it come from then?
Okay, so firstly, that's okay. I do not know.
Okay,
right?
good.
Bravo! All right, bravo. Very good.
It's fine not to know.
Wow. I'm sorry. I just had to laugh about this. And this is the coup de grace. This is the problem when somebody's trying to prove something that is so clear. It is self-evident. Come on. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another video of the Gospel of Christ. In this video, we are going to react to this gentleman in the white t-shirt right there, trying to prove the non-existence of God with evolutionistic theories, you know, the common theories that atheists and agnostics tend to use out there, common stuff that you've probably heard before. But it was interesting to see the great lengths this man would go to come up with something that is entirely illogical just for the sake of not accepting that there is a creator, there is a designer of the universe. And just as Psalm 14 says, the fool says in his heart that there is no God, and what he's trying to work out in his mind will never make sense from a logical standpoint, and neither would it make sense from a philosophical standpoint. So without any further ado, let's play the video.
Kind of challenge you on your two pieces of evidence for God.
Yes.
So, intelligent designer, you said the eye, human eye, so there has to be a designer. But then you also said evolution is true. So you don't
As
need
a
a
process.
designer for making eyes, do you? You can evolve an eye.
You never get something from nothing.
Quantum physics again kind of challenges that one.
No, it doesn't.
Yes.
It challenges it, but it cannot make a strong case. Why? Because it's a philosophical issue. It's not a scientific issue. Can you get something from nothing?
There's a book called Something from Nothing. A Universe from Nothing by Lawrence Krauss. Have you read it?
So, no, I've not read it.
Okay.
No, it's impossible philosophically for you to get something where there's nothing. It's irrational. The only thing that comes from nothing is nothing. You never get something coming from nothing. Second point is, where is the creative mechanism in evolution? The creative mechanism in evolution does not exist. There is no creative mechanism in evolution. Is there?
There's 2 points. There's the evolution and making an eye, and then there's the universe from nothing. That's two kind of separate arguments, right?
Yeah, one is design and the other is something from nothing.
Yes.
Two different arguments, yes.
Okay. So something from nothing. Firstly, we're not 100% sure the Big Bang is the beginning of the universe.
We're not 100% sure of anything.
So
Agreed.
there are many different other theories than
Yes.
a God.
Yep.
I mean, there's the multiverse. God is one of many theories for how our universe came to be. Would you agree?
No. There are many different theories. Agree with you in that. But no. The idea of a multiverse has zero evidence to support it.
I would
It's
not agree
impossible
with that.
to, well, all right, fine. What's the evidence that they're multiverses?
Cosmic inflation. So directly after the Big Bang, there was a period of inflation. Not the inflation we see in the universe now. There was a speeded up inflation period. And the best explanation for that at the moment is kind of like a mother universe with many patches that experience inflation. And so there's many universes out there. That's kind of the one.
The mother
And-
universe
And yes. And then
has little progeny of the different universes. What on earth does that mean?
it means there's a kind of bigger reality outside of the universe we see and know.
What's the evidence that there's a bigger reality outside of this universe that we live in?
There are different models.
Models.
Yes.
So because there's someone has, with their fertile imagination, come up with another model?
Like the God hypothesis. Yes, that's also just a model.
No, it's not. It is based on my experience of reality, which is you don't get order and design by accident.
Yeah,
This BMW is not a result of an explosion in a junkyard. Shakespeare's plays are not a result of an explosion over a computer or from monkeys tapping on the computer. You only get order and design, be it a building, a car, an article of clothing, if there's a rational mind involved.
That's not entirely true.
Well, then give me some examples that contradict it.
Again, there's two different arguments here. There's the universe one, and then there's design or kind of complex, mechanisms out there, like the eye. Or you can get humans from evolution, starting with a basic replicator.
Oh, I said that. I agreed with that.
But why do you then need a designer when
Because
you can get
you
it
do
from?
not have order and design without an intelligent mind involved. And
Somebody once said that it takes a lot more faith to be an atheist than to not be an atheist, to believe that the world has a creator, the world has a designer. And you'll see that in this guy's argument. By the way, there's a lot of stuff that he never really proved. He kind of like throw these terms around, and when Chris asked him to, what's your evidence to prove it, he just kind of like throws a couple words together, like word salad. He mentioned the multiverse, and then when Chris said, "What is your evidence for a multiverse?" he said models. I mean, like, what? Are you kidding me? I don't know if you guys are familiar with DC Comics or Marvel Comics, whatever the case may be. These are some of the things I kind of like, trying to read about, and they interest me. I read about them. And the multiverse theory is something that you see in those imaginary worlds, right? In DC, for instance, you would have like a Batman in this world, and in another universe within this multiverse, you have the same person, let's say, who's Batman in Earth 1, and in Earth 73, the same person who's Batman in Earth 1 is, I don't know, a surgeon. He's never a Batman. So you have like multiple universes, and across those universes, you have multiple people. You have multiple John Henry, and in this John Henry, who's here, a YouTuber, a Christian who believes in God, maybe an atheist on Earth 3 in a different universe, or you may be a mechanic in Earth 74. So that's like the theory of multiverse. So there's like parallel universes where you exist, your subconscious and your body or whatever the case maybe exist in multiple universes, and then the different people. But it's all fictional. There's no evidence for it. It's all theoretical. It's just model, and people postulate these things, but there's no evidence for it at all. So that's why when Chris asked him, "What's your evidence for a multiverse?" he said, "Well, there's model." Right? So I think it's unfair for him to just get off the hook by just saying, "Oh, there's a model, whatever," and then he just moves on. So, Chris is being very gracious. He doesn't want to, keep him on the hook, and then embarrass him in front of everybody. But he will, he will get embarrassed, eventually. Let's just keep watching how this unravels here.
secondly, you don't get something coming from nothing. It's impossible.
Again, that's two different arguments. Let's say.
I'm aware it's two different arguments.
Which one do you want to argue? Let's say.
You choose.
Let's do the evolution one, right? Okay. So imagine there's a very basic molecule, right? And it can replicate itself in the primordial soup, as it's been called. Over 4 billion years, directed by natural selection. Not a designer, not a god. You can evolve complex life, starting from a very simple basic building block. Do you agree with that or not?
I think it's rather clear that it's impossible to get a genetic code out of primordial soup by accident. The genetic code where proteins are allowed to be produced is far too complex a genetic code for me to say, okay, it's all just an accident. It just happens by chance. The amount of information in the DNA of a single cell is far more than the amount of informations in 3 sets of the 30-volume Encyclopedia Britannica. When you study the amount of information in the DNA of a cell, it is mind-boggling.
Yes,
and it's
after
real
all-
simple. So what if it's a few billion years? I don't care if it's a trillion years. You don't get that kind of order and design by chance. There's got to be an intelligent mind of some type.
Again, it's not complete chance. The mutations are chance, but it's guided by natural selection.
No. You do not have 1 + 1 = 2 guiding anything. 1 + 1 = 2 is a very accurate description, mathematically, in arithmetic, of if you have 1 and another 1, it equals 2. But guess what? 1 + 1 = 2 does not put any money in my bank account. I have to put the money, an intelligent being, into my bank account. Now, is 1 + 1 = 2 true? Yes, it is. But it doesn't do anything creative. It simply describes reality, which is if you have 1 + 1, then you got 2. That's what science is. That's what mathematics is. It's tremendously sophisticated. It's absolutely magnificent. I love it. But it is intellectually dishonest to say, therefore, because I know that 1 + 1 = 2, therefore I'm going to have $2 in my bank account. No. It's not just going to happen.
I honestly do not understand your argument there.
It's okay.
I'm just saying, this 1 + 1 = 2 abstract numbers, that's not where I'm going with this. I'm just saying that
I don't know if you guys caught the double standard. I don't know if you guys caught the double standards here. So when Chris took something mathematical, abstract, to explain that the fact that some theory is a representation of a reality, however, that theory cannot just do things. It's just a theory. There still needs to be someone to put things in motion to organize things. So he said, well, I don't want to talk about your abstract stuff here, right? I want to talk about something more concrete. However, earlier when he was talking about the idea of the multiverse, which is completely abstract, which doesn't represent any reality whatsoever, to add on to it, you see where the double standarding is. So again, Chris is being very gracious with him, and and he's being a little arrogant, in my opinion. But hey, that's what the Bible says in Psalm chapter 14. The fool says in his heart, there's no God. So the fool is trying to make up his own God, right? And there's a reason for that, which we'll discuss towards the end of this video.
processes can lead to something complex.
How in the world, though, do you believe in that naturalistic process if modern science, just recently, in the last 10 years, there's consensus on a cell cannot evolve? There's trucks within a cell that work together, but there's no evolutionary process with the cell.
Any non-Christian apologetic scientist that you can point me to?
I don't know many scientific apologists who are non-Christian.
A single cell, there's evidence for when the first single cell engulfed another cell, and that was the start of multicellular life, right? They've reproduced that process in the lab.
No.
So once you have that, then you can.
But there's no scientific evidence to that. There's no evidence behind that. You just asked me where I got mine. Where do you get the evidence that Lawrence Krauss does not? I've talked to Lawrence Krauss before. He does not believe that. He does not say that a cell can just pop up out of nowhere and then just evolve and self-replicate.
I also never say the cell pops out of nowhere.
Okay. So where does it come from then?
Okay. So firstly, that's okay. I do not.
I'm sorry. I just had to laugh about this. And this is the coup de grace. Let's just play that again one more time. This was too funny. This is the problem when somebody's trying to prove something that is so clear. It is self-evident. Come on.
Scientific evidence to that. There's no evidence behind that. You just asked me where I got mine. Where do you get the evidence that Lawrence Krauss does not? I've talked to Lawrence Krauss before. He does not believe that. He does not say that a cell can just pop up out of nowhere and then just evolve and self-replicate.
I also never say the cell pops out of nowhere.
Okay. So where does it come from then?
Okay. So firstly, that's Okay, I
Yeah.
do not know. Right?
There you go. Bravo. All right, bravo. Very good.
It's fine not to know.
Wow.
But science is working on that problem. That's a big, active scientific field to find the first
And
building
that's
blocks
a
of life.
great out for you.
No,
it's the
no,
science
no,
of the
no,
gap.
no.
Science eventually will just figure it out.
That's how science works.
No. Science is dedicated to discovery, but that is such a nice out for you to say, oh, there's no God, but science will just figure it out one day.
The big-
No, God absolutely is a creative, you want to talk about process, just call it a mind out there. If modern science was built off of Christians who said there's law, mathematical laws in this universe, so probably there's a lawgiver, that pushed them as creative minds to be scientists to figure out what the law is and who the lawgiver is himself. Call that a mind, call that a transcendent source, call that a higher power, but it's something outside of space and time because they knew something had to create space and time. It couldn't just pop up out of nowhere. A cell couldn't just pop up out of nowhere. That's why all the Keplers, the Galileos, even Einstein said it was such a major problem, so he eventually believed in God, because there had to be something outside of space and time that created space and time.
I'm going to preface what I'm going to say with, I know that's not how it happened, but the Urey Miller experiments in the 1950s, where they put a couple of element components in a flask, added energy, they show that you can get the beginnings of amino acids.
And that was
That's the
totally
building block.
disproved.
Just
Totally
because
disproved by
they-
NASA. NASA totally disproved it.
They had it wrong what elements
That's
were
right. Exactly.
available.
So they're
But-
wrong.
But it kind of shows
He's being dishonest here. He was trying to pull a fast one by saying, well, you know, this was proven, blah, blah, blah. And if Chris didn't know that it was disproved by NASA and that theory or whatever experiment that was withdrawn, he would have kept going with that statement, trying to convince people that what he's saying is true, when in fact it's not. So that's why Chris called him out on that and say, hey, it's baloney. It was not proven. So this guy is being very dishonest. He's not being honest. He's just trying to win an argument. He's not trying to prove anything because he can't prove that everything, the whole world as we know it, comes from nothing. He just simply can't. And his final resort is trying to be dishonest with what he's saying, and he's being called out for it.
you that there are ways that you can do it. People are still working on this.
Yeah, outside of reality, there are ways.
Yeah.
Poof, it can happen.
If you go
Why do you believe
read
poof, it can
now,
happen?
if
What's
you go-
outside of reality? Come
If
on,
you go
man.
to conferences on this, there are people working on models, working on ideas how you could either vents under the sea, these hot thermal vents, how you can create life there, how you can do it. I mean, there are many different theories out there. People are working on it.
But see, this is all you're
Just
saying.
have faith that we will find the
Exactly. You
answer,
just
right?
have faith. Science. No disrespect by this, but you just stepped up, and all you're saying is, well, no God. We just came from nothing, and science will figure it out. And there's models out there, but you're not giving the models. You're just saying there's models,
It's not my
and somehow
job.
science will figure it out. Well, where is the best evidence coming from? You need more than just saying there's models and science is going to figure it out. I need more than that. You see that?
A couple of years ago, we didn't even know there were other galaxies.
Mm-hmm.
Should we just have assumed, let's not do science. Science is never going to find. Let's just believe that
No,
we're the
keep
only.
studying.
We should keep on doing
Good.
science, asking questions
Yes.
and finding
Yep.
the answers,
Yep.
right?
If you can buy fully into that, so no God, there's no objective purpose, you came from nothing, there's no meaning in your life, you're going nowhere, you're just going to the grave, and that's all. So you need to buy into, I'm glad you brought up Lawrence Krauss and your boys, Dawkins and Hitchens and all of them. They clearly stated, you have no purpose, you're an accident, you have no meaning. You make up how you want to treat other people. Ultimately, it's all about just propagating the gene pool, survival of the fittest. So, if you want to sleep with somebody else's wife, if that's going to get you ahead, you go ahead and do that. And just don't let them figure it out. But in terms of it being consistent with your theory, in terms of survival of the fittest, strong eat the weak, and I want to propagate my own genes, Genghis Khan, just go ahead and sleep with your friend's wife.
No, okay, so there's still objectively. Okay, let me say it like this. I don't think there's objective morality, but we do create morality because there's a better strategy for survival. And a good strategy for survival between humans, where we live as social animals, is to work together. So me not sleep.
Nah, dude, you don't create morality. There's a moral law, and there's a moral lawgiver. That moral lawgiver, he's the one who creates and defines morality. He's the one who does it all. We don't just come up with the fact that, oh, you know what, I'm not gonna, kill my neighbor. I'm not gonna sleep with my neighbor's wife, my best friend's wife, right? We just don't come up with this wonderful idea, right? We don't come up with the idea that, a man should be with one woman. We don't come up with the idea that a marriage is between a man and a woman. We don't come up with the idea that, there shouldn't be any kind of a sexual interaction between human and animals. We don't come up with these things. There's a moral law and there's a moral lawgiver. That moral lawgiver, he's the one who's given us the moral law. He is holy, holy, holy. And his holiness defines what is good, what is acceptable, what is preferable, what is honorable for society, for humans. He's the one who defined these rules. He's the one who's given us this moral law. So this man trying to say, well, we do this when it comes to, our moral law, the way that we live life, is a complete farce. It's a complete lie. And that's the problem I have with atheists. When they're faced with the reality, well, if there's no God, then eat and drink and do whatever you want. Why try and do anything? After all, there's nothing. Life has no meaning. I'm on earth. My life doesn't mean anything. I'm just gonna turn into stardust. Why all this? Why do all that? What's the meaning of life? So when they're faced with that reality, then they come up with arguments like this. What this gentleman is trying to come up with. They come up with, these silly arguments. I call them silly arguments because what's the point? What's the point if there's no God and everything just kind of like poofed out of nothing and you have this whole world, this whole universe? Well, then what's the point? Anyway, let's just keep going and we'll stop in a minute.
Sleeping with my friend's wife is because we have social rules for the flourishing of humanity. It's better to work together than against each other.
So the only reason why you're not sleeping with your friend's wife is just because you kind of want to work together from an evolutionary perspective. That's what's holding you back?
Well, depends what is my friend's wife look. Depends my friend. What friend are we talking about? Can I turn this against you again quickly? What about slavery? Is slavery wrong?
Absolutely yes.
Does the Bible say it's wrong?
Absolutely yes.
Please tell me where.
It starts in Genesis chapter 1. God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. It goes on to Exodus chapter 21 verse 16 where we read, if you kidnap someone and are caught either still possessing them or having sold them, you are to be put to death. Death penalty.
Okay. Rules for treating your slave in the Bible. At no point does
That's
God
right.
say slavery is wrong.
Oh, God says it's totally wrong.
No.
Just read the letter of Philemon. Paul writes to a slave owner, Philemon, I have met your runaway slave Onesimus in prison. I've led him to Christ. I want him to come back to you. Please accept Onesimus back, no longer as a slave, but as a brother in Christ.
One slave.
Clearly.
One slave was free.
Galatians 3:28. There's neither slave nor free, for all are one in Christ Jesus. Why do you think William Wilberforce? Why do you think Frederick Douglass? Why do you think all of these different actors who were Christians led the abolishment of slavery? Why do you think they did that? Especially Frederick Douglass. He was a slave himself. He was beat endlessly. And yet he took the Bible and he said, we're going to go after this and attack slavery because of what Jesus Christ and Paul stood
because
for.
we are more moral than the Bible.
We're more moral than the Bible.
Yes.
Oh, so you
yeah,
do
this
have
is
an
getting good.
objective standard.
No.
Yes, you do.
Not objective.
You've just said we are more moral than the Bible. So you've made quite a judgment statement. Fine, I have no problem. You can make whatever statement you want to. But let's be real honest. You're not a relativist. You have just said we are more moral than the Bible, which means you have a standard, an objective standard of morality that the Bible falls far short of, but that you, with your moral superiority, do a better job meeting.
It's a subjective moral evaluation, I think.
You cannot live out moral relativism. It is impossible. Because you as a moral relativist, which you already acknowledged, are trying to pin us with this issue of, oh, does the Bible say that maybe slavery's right? Well, you're appealing to a moral argument. You're not appealing to a moral relativism. You're appealing to an objective moral standard and saying, I can't believe this horrible book, the Bible, actually promotes slavery. Okay, good argument.
Because slavery is not a good method for flourishing of
Which is your
humanity.
relative definition of morality.
Yes, it is. Exactly.
Well, just don't get too committed to your position, because remember, it is relative.
But exactly. Morality changes all the time.
Okay.
2,000 years ago, it was fine to have a slave. Even 200 years ago, people thought it was fine to have a slave. We progress, right? Now it's not cool to have a slave.
No, we don't
anymore.
progress.
Yes, we did.
No, we don't. What's the bloodiest century in the history of humankind? The 20th century.
No,
How about 42
maybe
million
just because
by
there's
Stalin?
more humans
How
on
about
Earth now.
37 million by Mao Zedong? How about 21 million by Adolf Hitler? How about 2 million by Pol Pot? The 20th century was the bloodiest, the most human beings massacred of any century throughout human history.
We don't count God massacring a lot of people.
Oh, really? When did that occur? Who did God massacre?
There's a story about a flood where he just decided, man, I don't like these people anymore. Let's kill them all.
No, that's not true at all.
Oh, sorry.
He chose to judge people who had consistently done evil, and he judged them. And there's coming a day of judgment when he will judge all of us. And he does that because he's just, because he loves, because we hurt each other and rip each other off. God doesn't say, let's have coffee at Starbucks. It really doesn't matter if you murdered somebody or hated them or raped them. It's okay, I'm just loving. And what goes around comes around, so let's just la la la. No, he loves you, which means if he loves this man and this man hurts this man, he's going to judge him for hurting him. Why? Because he loves him. That's why. God is not a rogue. He's not a Scrooge. He's a loving being who is just. And I can promise you, if you think date rape is cool, you're going to be in trouble with God. And I don't care how much you justify it with moral relativism and, well, just, we just make it up as we go along. No, God says, you treat people as valuable human beings because they're not just hunks of primordial slime evolved to a higher order. They're human beings created in the image of God.
He brought up a wonderful point regarding moral relativism. It's simply whatever morality is to you, that's your morality. If you think it's moral to throw somebody off a roof, and you have no problem with that, then that's totally up to you. That's moral relativism. If somebody else think it's moral to kidnap a group of girls and then just have them do horrible things and film them and have people pay to see it on the internet, well, that's fine. It's moral relativism. So you see, the atheistic mind, it's so corrupted. They don't even realize that it's so corrupt. They don't even realize that, because to have a standard of morality is a big problem for them. To have a standard of morality to them would mean that somebody would have to set that standard. And we say, believers say, that God is the one who set that standard. He is the moral lawgiver. But it's inconvenient for them because they would have to acknowledge the existence of God, of a creator. So therefore, they come up with moral relativism. Morality is relative, right? It's okay for, two men to sleep together, two men to get married. It's okay for a woman to just sex change and become a man, and a man vice versa. So when you get into that type of world, nothing makes any sense. There's no meaning at all to life. Another thing that got brought up, he brought up the idea of slavery. Chris said the 20th century was the worst century in terms of death. Right? You remember the world wars, World War I, World War II, the 20th century, and all those dictators that he mentioned, they massacred millions upon millions of people, right? And as he was talking, something came up on my mind. There are much more slaves right now than it has ever been in the human history, I believe. right? When you take, sex trafficking, for instance, when you take all these pornographic sites, when you take all those women who are being exploited, some of them are, willingly selling their soul, on the internet. But when you take all those millions and millions of girls, that are sex slaves, it's unbelievable, right? So it takes somebody with a moral standard that comes from the moral lawgiver to say, you know what, we can't live like that anymore. And the only way that that person could do that, if they have seen the truth in scripture. And that's the reason why when Chris's son said, although, some of the guys were slave, they pushed for the abolition of slavery based on what the Bible teaches, based on the teachings of Christ, teachings of Paul, because they see what the Bible, teaches about slavery, about human dignity, about freedom. So they were steered in that direction. Anyway, this is all we're gonna be talking about. Like and subscribe, and let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'll put a link in the video description so you guys can go and watch the full video. By the way, I kept calling Cliff Chris. I'm sorry about that. His name is Cliff Nichols, and that's his son who's with him in the video as well. I will see you guys in the next video.